Texas set a one-day record in the number of new coronavirus cases Tuesday as the total count rose to over 10,000 cases to 275,000. According to a CBS News YouGov Battleground poll, the more concerned voters are about virus outbreaks, the more likely they will support Joe Biden.
Indeed, and that poll also shows Biden neck and neck with President Trump in Texas, as the former vice president trails him by only 1 percentage point, consistent with a number of other polls as well. Joining us now to weigh in on Trump support in the Lone Star State and how the campaign is going in general is Trump Campaign Senior Communications Director Marc Lotter. Always great to see you, Marc.
Good to see you, Marc.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so we've seen a number of polls that have shown Texas as close. I'm always skeptical because Democrats long have been looking at Texas as like their sort of white whale, but this has been consistent polling. So how are you all looking at this state?
Not worried about Texas in the least. A lot of these polls that I've seen in recent weeks are just flawed in their methodology, including one of them I saw last week that oversampled Democrats by 5%, undersampled Republicans by 5%. And so it was just completely off in its model. And so all of our data shows that President Trump's running very strong in Texas. And I think the more that Texans see about Joe Biden's real plans to eliminate fossil fuels, to eliminate our energy advantage, that's going to hit Texas very hard. Not going to be a winning message in Texas.
Marc, I wanted to ask you, I was struck. Joe Biden releases a $700 billion Buy American plan. That sounds like, and Steve Bannon even said that's something right out of the Trump 2016 playbook. How come we don't hear more of that from your campaign?
Well, we talk about that, but look, accusations of plagiarism, that's kind of inside the Beltway talk. What Americans want to know is that for 50 years in Washington, D.C., Joe Biden didn't do anything to make Buy American better. He actually offshored our jobs by supporting NAFTA, championing TPP, welcoming China with most favored nation status. Those are the things that cost us millions of manufacturing jobs. So the thing I would ask the American people is not about whether it's a slogan of Buy American, who actually has a history of Buy American. It's not Joe Biden, it's Donald J. Trump.
So we always hear from you and other spokespeople and from the president himself that, your internal polls show a very different race than the public polling. Why not release some of that data so that people can see the difference?
Well, from our standpoint, we're using a poll is just a snapshot in time. And so we get new data every day. We evaluate it every day. We also don't want to let the Democrats know how far advanced we are in terms of our data analytics, something that they can't come close to matching. And so we're very confident with our numbers. We know exactly what it's going to take to get President Trump reelected. You saw it in the primaries when we set new vote totals for an incumbent president of either party in 23 of 27 states. People are very energetic about coming out and supporting the president, and we know how to reach them and get them to the polls, which is the key point.
And Marc, I think that's interesting because Trump does have the highest enthusiasm for pretty much any incumbent president who's run in a long time. But is enthusiasm just amongst the Republican base going to be enough to put you over the top in November, with many independents and moderates in the public polls that we have access to breaking at a significant margin towards Joe Biden?
Well, I think we're also looking at polls that are here in July and not in November. And this race will change multiple times between now and Election Day. And as people start paying more attention, as we see the economy continue to spring back to life, jobs being created, hopefully a vaccine announced, then I think you're going to see people recognizing the leadership that was provided by the president. They'll know more about Joe Biden's plans, and then it becomes a choice, which every election, that's what it is. It's a choice.
And ultimately, what is the message against Joe Biden? The president gave his speech in the Rose Garden yesterday. There was a laundry list of complaints about Biden's plans on the environment, on the economy, his record vis-a-vis China. But what actually is the message here? Because what we've been hearing repeatedly from you and from others is that Biden is a left-wing extremist. Look, this is someone who, in response to the defund the police movement, basically advocated for more funding for policing. He said absolutely no on the Green New Deal. He said absolutely no on Medicare for all. And people do know him as this kind of middle of the road, negotiate and compromise, nothing will fundamentally change kind of guy. So does that message really ultimately sell?
Well, but when you look at what he's actually proposing, he called the police the enemy just last week. The energy deal he put out yesterday is basically the Green New Deal light, with $2 trillion in tax increases and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of jobs lost. So this myth that Joe Biden is some moderate is nothing more than a myth. In fact, I would say he's more of a hollow shell, a Trojan horse for Bernie Sanders, AOC, and the squad. And while he might be a moderate sheep, it's actually a wolf in clothing.
Well, it's interesting, Mark, because again, it doesn't seem that the American people are convinced yet of that message. Is that the message that you're going to be driving home in many of the ads? And we haven't seen a consistent message across many of the ad campaigns in the last couple of months.
I think what you're seeing is we're just getting started with this. And so you've seen the 9/11 ad, the 911 ad, that if you call 911, according to Joe Biden and many Democrats, there's not going to be police there to answer that call, or it's going to take a long time for them to respond to protect your family. You will see more on the economic front. You'll see more on what the actual projections are going to be about what life would be like under a Biden administration. And it's not good for the American people. So we'll continue to make that case. We've got 16 weeks to go, and many people across America are just now starting to pay attention, not like the folks here in Washington, D.C., where we do this every day.
All right, Mark, always great to have you. Thanks you so
Mark.
much.
You too.
Yep. Next on Rising, if elected, will Joe Biden quash the filibuster? We're going to discuss when Rising continues.